back to the Nightmare Hour. This week, I believe we're a little late to move in here. There's some problems with the moving company. They lost some of our boxes. The truck took a wrong turn. But here we are in this beautiful new house, sold for pennies to the dollar. We got such a good deal on this place. So what could go wrong? This week, I'm moving in with my co-host, Adam Roberts. I'm Eric Havens. And true to form, as we promised, we're going to talk about the little subgenres / tropes that we find in horror movies and what they have in common. And this week, we're going to do the haunted house family group moving in and that setup. So, hi, Adam.
Hi. This house is very empty. I think we should maybe unpack these boxes and hang up some drapes. Yeah. First thing we do.
You think the realtor would have cleaned up the cobwebs a little bit? This cleaning crew or something. Did we not put that in our contract?
I don't think so. You think, somebody could bring a mop bucket in here and wipe up some of this
dried blood.
The dried blood and the grime everywhere. I don't know why there's so much grime in this house. But we got a hell of a deal on it, and that's the important part here. We saved a couple bucks, and we got this kind of crummy looking house that we're gonna turn it around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
what could go wrong? And maybe in like a year from now, we'll even turn a profit on this house.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, is there a movie called a haunted flip house movie?
Wait, isn't that kind of what they do in Amityville?
No, they're. I mean.
And then what they talk about though, we're gonna make a buck on it because they get it at such a good deal, right?
I don't think so. I think they were just a poor family who took out the deal on a house that was far too out of their price range.
I believe you said
one of the things
they're just a poor family from the Northeast.
No, I got nothing. But my eyes got big because I accidentally stumbled into what we were going to talk about, with current events or current releases, and how we're going to kind of introduce this. And one of the series on Netflix that the second season just came out of, Haunting of Hill House, actually was about that. That whole family lived there while their dad was fixing up the place to flip it. So that has been done.
Yeah, I guess.
But but Bly Manor just was released last week? Is that right? Or 2 weeks now?
I think last week. We'll say last week.
I'm not finished with it, but I'm further ahead than you are. I just finished episode 6, but I thought we'd start there just to mention these and talk about Mike Flanagan's approach in general, even with Dr. Sleep a little bit. It deals with The Shining, which is another borderline haunted family moving in house movie, and Mike Flanagan kind of his series have kind of formed how I've looked at these recently. Before, we'd watch all these when we were young, and you just see the creepy, creaky doors and the things escalating and the get outs and all that stuff. And it'd just be a fun movie. But I think Mike Flanagan does an excellent job in focusing on the trauma of a family and how that haunts us. And so that's kind of how I'm looking at these today. How about yourself?
I think any ghost story deals with some kind of trauma or past memories. I think if it's done, I think even when it's not about a family moving into a place, even if it's an unrelated, unknown being, even you look at some of the J-horror stuff, The Ring and The Grudge, both those are, people that, tragic things that happen to those people or in those places, and the hauntings are residual from that. So even though I have nothing to do with it and I move into the house, those are kind of the murder mystery solving films,
put the spirit at peace kind of movies.
Right. But I think today because this is a month of tropes, we're talking specifically about the trope of individuals moving into a new place and that place being haunted. It's, I think, maybe one of the oldest tropes, because you brought up Shirley Jackson's Haunting of Hill House, and of course the new season Bly Manor is based on The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, if I remember.
It's Henry James.
And both those have been adapted and influenced quite the amount of different films, and the adaptations have all been different. So I guess we'll start with the first season. But yeah, you're right. Flanagan I mean, you look at his career, motherfucker loves a ghost story. Like
Mm-hmm.
Oculus is a ghost story. Absentia is a ghost story. Doctor Sleep, you could say, is a ghost story, and for sure a
Definitely, yeah.
haunting of a film.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Hush is the only one that's not. And
Well, and the
Ouija is.
what's the other Stephen King one that he did where she gets trapped? I
Hmm.
can't remember the name of it.
The sexy movie.
That's kind of, yeah, but that's kind of a ghost story without ghosts. Like she's haunted by all that, like her memories and that person who ends up to be real, but we don't know it's real.
That would be 2017's Gerald's game.
There we go.
But
That
then,
Gerald.
yeah, Gerald, and then Ouija 2: Origin of Evil, which is actually a terrific film that fixes and retroactively makes the first film, which was a total piece of shit, worth watching. But old Mike Flanagan, born in Salem, Massachusetts, of course he was. Yeah, I just had to drop that knowledge because I remember reading that and I'm like, no, he wasn't born in Salem, but I guess he was.
Oh God, is he a witch?
I don't know. Maybe he could be a witch.
Story checks out.
Yeah,
but yeah, you're right. Like we're one of the other movies we have on our docket today is another adaptation of that same story of Hill House. So
yeah, so
and like completely different adaptations too. So be interesting.
So the TV series he makes it modern day, and so all these adaptations are pretty fascinating because I think all the ones that are related to the haunting of Hill House, which for this sake I think is just the haunting. 1963 is the haunting.
Yeah, and then the Liam Neeson's remake.
1999, the remake of The Haunting, and then what is
the series?
And then the series, yeah. I think that's it. Those three, for that are like straight ahead adaptations,
right? And the series is very loosely based. Like that's what I mean about Mike Flanagan really having a niche in like family trauma and how that haunts us, because the original Haunting and the remake are more true to the book or the short. I guess it's a book, but about these people being drawn to this place for like a study, basically. Like that's how the original is. So
yeah, and
he does not do that. Yeah.
Go ahead.
He does not do that at all. Like he uses the house, he uses some of the ghost stuff, he uses some of the Shirley Jackson's vibe, I guess, like the dread she has, but he doesn't use the strangers coming together thing. He uses a very broken family with very like intense relationships as the background, and that seems to be a very, like you were saying, like a common theme in his work completely.
Well, and what's fascinating about Hill House, I think the novel, if I remember, was written in 59, and it quickly adapted into the book in 63, or into the movie in 63. Sorry. But what's fascinating about that is that the premise is basically what you said. There's a mansion called Hill House. It's located kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's forgotten and it's supposedly haunted. And a couple characters led by a doctor who's going to lead this group. Well, there's an investigator who's like a paranormal expert. There's a doctor, and then two women that
I can't remember.
One of them's an artist.
Yeah.
It's been a minute since I've watched it, but that setup right there also is stolen in Richard Matheson's The Legend of Hill House, or Hell House, which is quite simply the same setup. It's just lacks the character development, I think, and nuance. But I love The Legend of Hell House. I mean, they're entirely different films, but
but I'm with you. It is
setup
amazing.
And then really even House on Haunted Hill, the original Castle film, that is pretty much the same setup of like somebody bringing other people into a supposedly haunted house. Of course, his intentions are quite different, but it is like the idea of bringing guests into a house. So not necessarily a family moving in, but bringing guests for a specific purpose, to move the premise. I mean, the plot into the haunting as quickly as possible.
Well, and it follows that same formula, like whether they're blood family or not, they have like conflict. Like what drives the whole thing is like how they interact and how they conflict.
So all three of those. So 1963's The Haunting is, far and away a classic. It's a masterpiece.
Hmm.
It's beautifully shot.
Hmm.
And then,
Yeah,
I was 14 when the remake in '99's The Haunting came out. I think that was John DeBont, right? Jan DeBont.
that sounds right. It feels like one of his movies.
I think that was like weirdly
It's
in like his career of, John DeBont. I
and
think
it's
that,
like in that early time when CGI just wasn't quite there yet, but everyone used it too much. I
and I
remember
think
that a
I might have
lot.
butchered his name. It's a French name, but he directed, of course, Speed. He did Twister. He did
And yeah,
Laura
and it
Croft.
feels this movie feels very much like that. Like it's
Yeah,
not.
it's a big
There's
action
no.
movie.
What makes the original like The Haunting the film such a classic now is it's like a master class in like building dread when you're not seeing anything. Like everything's off screen. It's all sounds. There's shadows. Like it's terrifying. Like
Yeah.
this film is the opposite of that. It's CGI. It's like The Mummy in a haunted house.
The Mummy is a much better film, but the cast of that remake was terrific. It was Catherine Zeta-Jones,
Yeah,
Liam Neeson, Owen Wilson, Lily Taylor, Virginia Madison. I
yeah.
mean, that's a terrific
It's all
cast.
star. Yeah,
I mean, today I don't think you can get quite that cast, and I think it made a pretty big sum of money, but it was garbage, and it pretty much just spit in the face of
yeah.
the original film, which is, you're right, all about nuances.
Yeah, it just like, and it's kind of that remake doesn't fit into what we're talking about. Like, while it does plot wise, it doesn't fit any of those themes or anything that we
No.
meet. It's like they didn't understand what the movie was supposed to be about somehow.
So the next set of films we're going to talk has been adapted, I think just as much, maybe more, but the big three we're going to talk about is, I previously mentioned The Turn of the Screw, which is what this season of The Haunting of Bly Manor from Flanagan is about,
Hmm.
but was originally adapted into The Innocents, which I think was from 1954, and
Yeah.
The Others, which is also from 1999. I think those are the only, if I'm correct, those are the three big. I mean, there's been
Yeah.
a lot of adaptations from that one as well.
And it wins. Like, it has the best adaptations. Like, all three of those things are great films and great things. I haven't made it all the way through Bly Manor yet, but I'm loving it. So
Yeah.
Henry James wins the adaptation battle over Shirley Jackson.
Only because Jane DeBont, shit the bed. But and it looks like there's actually a lot of international adaptations of this. Oh yeah, we just had one a year and a half ago called The Turning in America.
Oh
And then there's actually a lot. If you look at their page, it's shocking how many there are. But it's, I guess Henry James' estate has made quite the penny on this little adaptation here. But
yeah.
This is a much more tragic film, I would say. I mean, you want to kind of give this here? It's similar though.
Like which film are we doing here? Because there's
We can just do
adaptations
the basic story.
Okay.
Yeah, is typically a new housekeeper or governess or something like that goes into a mansion in the middle of nowhere, hired by the I think it's typically the uncle of a family.
It's like a mysterious, it's a mysterious job and unorthodox hiring, but they show up to this very established group in this mansion.
He's always
in the middle of
uninterested in raising the kids himself. It's kind of an ominous, like, not necessarily like an ad in a newspaper, but also kind of exactly like that. And there's two children and a housekeeper, and that's the setup, I think, for every one of the adaptations I've seen.
Yeah, I think that's
they might change their titles a little bit, but there's always, that's the process. So this woman enters this world with two children who have lost their parents and have a housekeeper. I would say every adaptation of this story is absolutely breathtakingly gorgeous. The Others really settles in on atmosphere and makes it more of all of them. It's probably the scariest.
I think
it's also the least emotional, I would say, of them. But it's
for sure. It's the fastest moving one of them too. Like, it's like beat by beat horror movie until there's the twist, and then it's like and you got like because that came around the time that the twist ending Thanks M Night was like a huge thing. So it really leans heavy on the twist of it all, if I remember correctly. Like, I love that movie. I haven't seen it in a while, but I loved it at the time. But now that I'm watching Bly Manor and thinking about it, like, it does kind of put the theme of like family trauma and the sadness of death in the past and how that all haunts us. Like it's not really that, it's in there, but it's not as interested with it. It doesn't seem like.
Well, and the others, again, you're correct in that it wants to play in the horror realm a little bit more than some of these other ones, and it takes more of the basic idea. That one's set in the World War II era, where the housekeeper that's coming in, played by Nicole Kidman, is going to be helping these two children who have.
No, Nicole Kidman's the mom. She's not the housekeeper. I'm pretty sure.
Is that right? Well, she's the one that
from
moves
memory.
in.
No, it's what's her face? Let me look. Oh God, we're on record. It has been a while since I see this. She's definitely the mother because she realizes something at the end that's like the twist part.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. She is the mother.
It's Miss.
It's,
yeah.
I can't remember her name. I can see her face.
Yeah.
Anyways, she takes care of her two kids that have a rare disease.
I think it's
photosensitivity. So most of this movie takes place in the dark, and it's pretty fascinating. But it almost makes you forget kind of what else is happening around, and it doesn't. It does have an element of sadness. I think every ghost story does. This one definitely plays up the scares quite a bit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For
sure.
It's been a minute since I've seen that, so I need to revisit it. Clearly, I thought she was the mother just because that's how the story typically plays out. But does this have somebody? Wait, does somebody actually move in there? Oh yeah, she hires a bunch of new people. That's what it is. So rather than there already being a servant there, we
it's
follow
like
multiple new servants. Right?
It's those older ladies. Yeah, the older lady and like they just show up to help.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Like what's her face? God, she's such a great actress, and I can't remember her name. The older maid lady.
Yeah, I can see her face. She's been in a bazillion things. Yeah. But yeah, that one, a terrific film. I don't know how much more we need to say, but it uses the trope of moving. I guess that one, you have the housekeepers that are moving in, but it's still mainly from the perspective of a character that doesn't. So the others actually might not fit technically, but
after the twist, it definitely doesn't fit. Like when you find out who everyone is and who the housekeepers are and all the interactions and stuff, it's definitely not a moving in technically, but it still fits that basic theme, which is what I'm more interested in, like the tropes that the themes that these kind of tropes lean on. Like that's the more interesting part, and that's how I think this movie really fits, because it is like the interpersonal stuff that makes this all terrifying.
Do you have anything else you want to talk about for The Turn of the Screw or Bly Manor?
No, besides recommendations, like I know Bly Manor's a little slow, so I understand why people might be taking a little longer with it, and it's very British and stylized, very masterpiece theater-ish. Like people don't talk like that, and it feels very theatrical, and I get why it might take people to get through it, but like get through to like episode 5 and 6 and you'll see some of the best, like what we're talking about, this trope, like some of the best writing of family trauma and how it haunts us in the past and grief, and like episode 5 and 6 specifically are just kind of exploded my writer brain everywhere, just how good it is. So check it out.
And I'll say very similarly, I've only watched 2 episodes of Bly Manor so far, but I did revisit The Innocents a couple weeks back, and so far it's more of an adaptation, I think, of The Innocents, or The Innocents is a terrific adaptation of The Turn of the Screw, however you want to look at it. But The Innocents has that sorrow throughout the entire thing and kind of otherworldliness. It never gets incredibly scary, but it's got this unique vibe that I think Flanagan is chasing this time around, rather than, I mean, we can all say that The Haunting of Hill House, he has some of the most well-crafted scares the last 20 years. And people expected that with Bly Manor, but Bly Manor is a much more, a more deeply emotional story. And isn't necessarily chasing those same kind of scares. So if you want those, you have the others, and you have Hill House, and but Innocence.
Yeah, for sure. Like this one's like the worst so far. Like as far as like traditional horror goes, in Bly Manor is sometimes you'll get the tingles, like but nothing like terrifying. So
okay, so I'm gonna move us into where people, I think, the more traditional.
Did you mean to pun that? We're gonna move into something else.
We're gonna move right into where people, I think, when they hear haunted houses, what they're expecting. So those are much more of the classic ghost stories. But I think when people hear haunted house, there's a couple titles that jump right off the shelf. Slap me in the face for saying that. And the first one I will bring up, which is to me is one of the greatest films of all time. Well, there's one of the greatest films of all time, and there's also one of the greatest haunted house films of all time, horror films for me. That would be 1982's Poltergeist.
Oh, really? You put it up there with you? Like one of your favorites?
Oh yeah, I think the more time goes on, the more I absolutely love this film. I think the effects, even though they're not perfect, they work so well in this movie. They almost have a level of timelessness that this film has.
Yeah.
But this is, a family moving into a new neighborhood and a new house. Of
Yeah,
course, when we start the film, they've already moved in, but we hear through conversation that this is a brand new neighborhood, brand new house. So while we don't see them physically moving in, they're still settling down.
Well, like a whole brand new development too. They're like one of the first people to live in this neighborhood, and like the neighborhood's brand new.
I wonder. So I was gonna go with a different film that I think I'm gonna pair with another one. So I'm not gonna go there quite yet because that is, I think, in top 5 scary movies for me, and the one that I think most movies aim to be like. But Poltergeist, and we don't have to talk about it too much because it's probably the most popular and most well seen on the whole episode today. But it sets the trope up so well of suburbia gone wrong, and how could your this perfect house and perfect suburban neighborhood turn against you so horribly and go so horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And
this kind of trope is less about the family trauma, because the family's generally well functioning and loving. Like I don't really remember, I mean, there might be slight moments, but I don't remember a lot of like trauma that this family's going through. So it is more based on the external, and like you said, this movie does deal, like, it's kind of, if you really want to do a deep analysis, it's almost attacks capitalism, really, like white and like colonial capitalism. That's kind of what this movie, what they're haunted by. Is there any other films that do that through a haunted house now that we're thinking about it?
I don't know. That's
maybe well, no, not really. I was just thinking Paranormal Activity because of how like the house is, and like how like urban it all is, and money and videotapes and all that stuff. But
yeah, no,
I the ghost really doesn't have much to do with that.
Yeah, no, it's just a great ghost story and a haunted house story, and I think it's built around, it's one of the only like set piece driven ghost stories that really does work. But the one I was teasing there is, I believe, so that was 1982, but I believe the one I'm going to talk about is 80, I think. 1980s, The Changeling.
Oh yeah, that's an apartment though, right?
No, it's a mansion. Is
it? What am I thinking of? What's the one where the like lady moves into the apartment that's like witched?
Rosemary's Baby.
No, not that one. I'll find it real quick.
Well, no. So in The Changeling, it is George C. Scott, who's a composer. In the beginning, we see a horrible car accident during the wintertime that kills his wife and daughter. And then he leaves his big New York City for a big secluded house on the opposite coast of Seattle. And that's when he starts being haunted by what we believe to be a young boy who possibly died there. And this movie is the haunted house movie for me. Like every trope within the tropes of the haunted house genre is in this film. I mean, you have creepy echoes, you have the creaky floors and doors slamming upstairs, but then you also have an inanimate object, like something so simple as a red ball that bounces down the stairs and stops right perfectly at the base of his feet. You have the ghost story tied to a mystery that's bigger than what it initially seems. And I think that this movie just has, and I don't want to spoil it because I think this one is one that a lot of people haven't seen, because until recently it was rather hard to find. But I believe I think Arrow put out the remaster. I'm not sure, but I have the Blu-ray, and it's terrific, and it looks better than ever. This is a gorgeous film with a great score, but it's just, if you and I know you, it's Severin, and I know you said that you haven't seen it in a while, but
yeah, obviously I thought it was a different movie. but I remember it now. Yeah, the movie I was thinking of was called is The Sentinel, by the way.
Oh yeah, I texted you the other day and I said I don't know what this movie is, or I've never seen it. But is that that must be one that's hard to find too?
It's great, but yeah, I don't. I think I might have gotten it back when Netflix mailed things to people. I think that's how I saw it. That might be on there.
So is that one I
But
should
yeah,
check? That one I should check
yeah,
out.
yeah, that's great. Like
Holds
it's
up.
yeah. I mean, according to me, like 15 years ago, yeah. Like whatever time is, 12 years ago, whatever. But I remember really enjoying it. It's from 1977, so it's got that vibe to it.
All right.
And it's like it is very demonic haunted gates of hell kind of movie. So it doesn't really fit in here, but it is someone who moves in and gets haunted. So check it
Yeah.
out. Why not?
But yeah, I do love the change lane, and it does, like when you watch it, almost every scene feels like something that was stolen later on in some of these other films we're going to talk about. So you want to bring one up? I don't know. I don't know what you got in
I don't
front
know.
of
Should we
you.
talk? Did we go too fast over the Poltergeist? Because I just put the in front of all the movies now. Apparently, the Poltergeist. Do we want to talk about it anymore, or do you think we covered that? Because I do
Well,
think it's interesting that it follows all of this that we're talking about, but it does have different themes. So that's kind of weird. What makes you think of that trope? Like, is it just the? I don't know. It's weird because it doesn't have. I guess it's a daughter in distress. I guess that could be like some familial stuff, but not really. Like it's a pretty loving family. It's just about white colonialism mainly, I think. So, anywho,
yeah.
we can move on. See if we can
Well,
find any more white colonial haunted house movies.
let me see here. So, well, I mean, I have a couple more on my list, but is there one you wanted to talk about?
I think if we're going like, I don't know if it's still be called modern because I'm old and time goes by really quick, but like a modern classic to me that we should probably at least nod to because it is just that weird combination of fun, terrifying, gripping, all that stuff. It's The Conjuring. I think we should probably talk about that movie
Yeah.
because does it fall into I mean, it is family moving in. And I guess the family trauma starts really after the ghostly stuff starts happening because the mother starts getting affected by it, like emotionally and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure it fits into that, like the past haunt. Well, no, like I don't think that really that does fit into like the past that haunts us because
The
it
Changeling?
is
Or no, sorry,
no the
you're talking about
Conjuring.
Conjuring.
Yeah, like what would the
Conjuring.
theme be in that one? Just like I
Well,
don't
that
know.
one's that. So the Conjuring's okay. So the Conjuring definitely has the trope, right, of
Mm-hmm.
a family moving into a place. So
The
that
happy
one,
music and carrying boxes, all that
yeah,
good stuff.
and it might have the montage of unpacking and getting everything's perfect, but that film isn't so much about the family as it is the investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah.
So while I think that their investigation is about a family, it's so I think that's where the themes are a little bit broken because it's about I think their discovery and proving that something otherworldly exists. Maybe.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to like the forces in that film. Do they end up being demonic? That's what I'm trying to remember. They're not people that were there before. They're like demonic, right? They're not
Um,
past trauma or anything. It's just
yeah, I
evil
don't think so.
spirits just
Well,
effing with
no,
the family.
wasn't. She sees somebody hung outside their
Oh
house.
yeah, like the
Wasn't there
witch or
like
whatever.
there's like some
Like
element of witchcraft to it.
yeah, like she was the nanny that got hung because she was doing something. Yeah, that's right. So there is a little bit of like being haunted by the past there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe that fits into white colonialism a little bit because the whole like burning witches and stuff is very much in that theme. Like if you're not a white Christian person, off to the tree with you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much more we get because it's not like some of these other ones where the haunting is really about the person. They need the person to solve something to free their spirit from the trapped location.
Yeah.
That's another one that, as I say that, like that I really enjoy that is kind of like this and is a tragic story is I believe this is 2000
Mm-hmm.
is Stir of Echoes.
I haven't seen that like probably since the theater. That's the Kevin
No,
Bacon, right?
99. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
Uh,
about that one. I don't remember that at all, except for the poster. I don't like. I remember like he's in the house alone, isn't he, or does he have a family?
he is with his wife and like 5 or 6 year old kid,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
he gets his mind unlocked by his sister-in-law during a psychic reading. I actually think it's quite effective. It's David Kep's best movie.
So
um,
it's literally like his past haunting them
no, this is a murder that took place.
in the house.
That's no, well, kind of, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
So it is like the past that haunts
Yes,
us. Then.
because he sees what happened, and it's like young high school boys that killed a girl
Oh,
and got
damn.
after they tried to sexually assault her.
Oh God. It's
It's
dark.
it's a very insane
It's
movie.
dark
It's
movie.
based on another Richard Matheson novel. Um,
I thought of another one here too while we're going. I was going through. That's it's not quite a house, but I think it still applies. Ty West, The Innkeepers.
yeah. So that, but the only thing is they're not really moving in. Although, like, you
They
could
do
make the
though, right?
argument. Well, you could make the argument that the guests that are coming into the house that night are bringing
Well,
some
it's
kind
kind
of
of like
energy with them,
yeah.
right?
And doesn't she? Isn't she doing like a live-in situation? I thought.
Well, they're no, they have to stay there that weekend because they don't have enough people. The owner's gone, and they don't have enough people to cover their shifts, so they're
Oh yeah.
working
Okay.
all day. It's
I
just
remember they
not,
lived there. So okay.
yeah. But that movie is terrific. But The Conjuring, yes. So The Conjuring, while it fits and the premise of getting people to move in has some of the elements, I think it does become a movie more about. It loses some of what we're most of these other ones have, which is that emotional haunting.
Yeah.
But definitely Stir of Echoes, I think, fits in that.
Yeah. I haven't seen that. I'll have to check it out because that sounds exactly what we're looking at. Except for, yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
because that's what's
you've never seen it?
yeah. I've seen it, but like
It's been a
again, it
long
was
time.
that at the theater. I don't think I've ever rewatched it. I remember going to see it at the theater.
But so we from one James Wan movie to another James Wan movie, Insidious, the first
Mhm.
one, I do think counts as a haunted house film.
For sure. I don't quite remember why things start happening in that one though. I remember like how they battle it, and I remember the family, and I remember a lot of sequences, but I don't remember why. Like, what is it about the house or the family that's causing this?
Well, they move into a new house. Their kid goes into the attic and sees something in the shadows, and then he goes into a coma.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think I don't they end up moving to a new house.
Yeah, but it
Um,
follows him, right? Because it's in him or
yes,
something.
yes. And it's more about lineage, kind of, right? If I remember,
Mm-hmm.
like he's cursed, the dad is, and it
Oh
comes
yeah.
after his kid or something. But this one is like multi-parted. The first house isn't as strong as the second house. It appears, but it has
Yeah.
similar tropes.
Yeah.
Like I think,
It seems very similar now that I'm reminding myself of the plot synopsis here. It's very like it would make a great double feature with Poltergeist.
yeah, for sure.
Very similar.
The biggest change is I think at the end when they go into the other realm,
Yeah.
which in this one is done, I think, quite fun.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I think Insidious is a great film and it's scary and I'm trying to, but does hmm. Now I'm like they move houses multiple times.
Mm-hmm. It still fits though. It's like, I mean, it's still
Well, yeah, there's
it's
some
not the haunted house, I guess,
uh-uh.
but some of these we've talked about, like the house isn't necessarily the problem either. It's the family, like with them being haunted by themselves. So
Yeah, and then
I'll
this
allow it.
yeah, this does have one of my favorite James Wan sequences. I think in each of his horror films, he's got terrific set pieces. And this one, when they move into that second new house, and it's playing tiptoe through the tulips, and
Mm-hmm.
you're just following her through the house, and it's like you can almost feel the wind blowing in. It's just like a beautiful like fall or spring day, and then her son, she thinks she sees her son moving through the house, but it's actually something else, and it's just like a terrific set piece of a scare, and it really gets me every time, and it's sends goosebumps down my back just thinking about it.
Yeah, like you're right. Like his skill, his visuals, obviously, but also like the pacing of those scares. Like he is incredible at getting that timing right. Like to let the tension get to just that right spot where you can't hardly sit still in your chair. Like The Conjuring, for Christ's sake, like the clap, like that
Oh yeah.
sequence. Are you kidding me? Like that still gets me. And I mean, we've all seen that 1,000 times, and it's become like cliche now. But when that was new,
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, terrifying
yeah,
for sure. Let's see what I got here. I got a couple more, and
okay.
I think we're getting most of these are quite similar, I think, to what we've already touched upon, but I think most of these are 2000s on. Well, before we move into the 2000s, there's another one that we've already tackled very heavily, but we'll be remiss if we don't say the Amityville Horror. I think when we did that subject, we really realized that sets a lot of the tropes for the modern horror film. So we can't not acknowledge that. Does family moves into a house probably just as well as any of these other films.
Oh yeah, and it has all of it, really. Like it starts off fine, but I mean it's demonic or whatever, but the family also has a lot of trauma that it feeds off of. Like it just doesn't make the dad an asshole. It's like real stuff that they would be fighting about anyway. It just amplifies everything. So it does have that like family conflict theme that we're talking about, and it has like the house scares, and hey, why not? It has a little bit of like the capitalism have and have nots, because they get this house because of the discount prices, because murders.
Yeah.
So it's about affluency and all that too, because I said so.
Yeah, because you said so.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's I think the beats it takes are just like kind of what when I think of haunted houses, it's something, a deal too good to be true. Family moves in, family unpacks, they're having a great time, that things are going well, and then somebody is impacted by the house and specifically them, and then it's them questioning their sanity, and then things get weirder and weirder, and then you realize, okay, is this something I have to solve? Is this something that's like trying to get at me or harm me? And then the final act just goes from there, and it usually ends with people dying or running out of the house with nothing else happening. And those are like the big beats of the haunted house film, and
for sure.
It's one of the cheaper, I think, films, because you're dealing typically with less,
one
maybe
location,
only one location. Yeah.
I'm scanning through, making sure we don't forget anything. And if you're listening and you have like young children at home and you want to introduce them to these themes and these horror movies, we hear this question all the time. Like, I love horror movies. How do I introduce our kids to them without, traumatizing them for life? A couple years ago, I don't think many people talked about this movie, but I went to the theater to see it with a couple of kids, and it's a lot of fun. And I say The House with the Clock in Its Walls. You should start that, like the 2018 Jack Black, Kate Blanchett film. And it follows the same tropes, but in like very like silly kid ways. Like it's very much like family. Like it's directly family. Like it's like family curses and like family conflict and feuds and stuff. It fits really well into what we're talking about. It's just done as like a Disney ride, and it's a lot of fun. And it does have like tiny little creepy things. So your little kid will be like a little like, whoo, but nothing like none of these other traumatic films we're talking about. But I just thought I saw that, and if there are any parents listening, that's a good one to throw at your kids.
Yeah. I have a couple more here. So these are all modern takes on a lot of the big ones we talked about. So they're trying to find unique ways to, I think, change the game, as it were. So the first one, well, I'm going to delete a couple of these because I don't think they're that great.
You have to tell us what they are now.
No.
We're just going to badmouth everyone for the last part of our podcast.
A lower budget one that we have to talk about that does turn these on and locks everyone in the house is Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
Do they actually move into this house? Is this a new house? what starts the activity in that film? It's been a long time since I watched the first one. Oh no, it says in 2006, Katie and Micah, a young couple, move into a new house in San Diego.
Oh, I don't remember that part. I mean, I know they're like newlyweds and everything's new. I don't remember moving in though. Maybe they just talk about it.
Yeah, they must it must be like Poltergeist, where it's like we've been here for 2 weeks or something, whatever
yeah.
it is. Yeah.
But that, I mean, we all know the mythos of that one just because they kept explaining more and more things as the sequels came out. But the first movie, it's terrifying to me. Like I haven't. There's only a few movies in my like handful of movies where I've been physically affected afterwards, where I feel like a little shaky and I need a little. I don't know. I just. It's not like I can go for a jog afterwards. I need a little moment.
Yeah.
And that was one of them. Like it was terrifying to me.
So that movie was fascinating because when it came out, I think that was in 2007. Does that sound right?
Sure. Probably, yeah. Maybe 6, but somewhere around there.
So
Mid aughts.
We're talking early development of like what is modern social media, and they did a campaign called the campaign was called, I want to say, I'm trying to remember who did it. It was like basically you had to sign up to bring it to your town.
Yeah, I remember
how they did it. And
I signed up.
oh, I did too. And when it came here, I was just so lit about it. And I was there the first day.
Me too.
And it was like, oh, you had to demand it. That's what it was. You had to demand it to come to your town. And I was like, this is just, it was in the time frame where, and this was, it was 2007. So this is 8 years after Blair Witch. So you had a bunch of Blair Witch copycats kind of early. And then things kind of slowed down on the found footage front until this movie came out. And then it was like, found footage is here and this is how you do it. And this movie just, it's not that it necessarily felt, it wasn't, well, it was sold as real, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But
they didn't say it. I mean, it wasn't like Blair Witch where like tricked people. Like, but it does feel real. Like it feels realistic and it builds slowly. Yeah.
And I think after Blair Witch, we thought we were going to get more of these. And this one, maybe it's more it impacted us a little bit more because after you watch this movie that involved normal people and a normal camcorder and a normal house that wasn't like Poltergeist and Blair Witch, you're still safe because it's in the woods. Yeah. When you leave this, and we've all heard those things in our house and woke up in the middle of the night and thought something was happening. You're now going to basically the set where this movie took place. You have to go to sleep, and it's just like so real and so traumatic.
That's one of the genius things about this, unlike what we kind of set this podcast up with and all these other movies, is this just looks like track housing. Like it looks just like any house you buy, like your first home purchase. like this generic box they built. There's like 20 more of them down the block.
Whoa.
Like just suburban home.
This movie actually came out in 2009.
Oh.
It was made, it had a Screamfest premiere in 2007, but it took 2 years to come out.
Because you had to demand it.
Yeah. It took 2 years to get the results in. But that movie, that movie, I guess it does fully count. And I think what works is that you have the skeptic in there and he's just a guy who wants to film it. And like, it's kind of funny because she fully believes in everything. And he's like, well, let's just film it. Like, and he's kind of being like the prototypical jackass, but he is the audience in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And we go on the roller coaster.
The eyes too. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't really see a whole lot. You see footprints, you see a sheet get ripped off, but it's just so minimalistic and it changes the approach to what the traditional way of experience a haunted house is.
Yeah. And it has, I think we've talked about this on the podcast, but I've definitely talked to you about it, is like my number one fear is what can happen when you're unconscious. Like the things that happen when you're asleep or could happen when you're asleep. That's why I can't go camping outside. I just can't fall asleep. It's terrifying. There's too many variables out here. So that movie makes use of that and maybe like the most effective way that I've experienced. Like just the things that happen to them while they're sleeping, from the slow things like the blankets getting pulled a little bit and on. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it is terrifying because it is all the things that we think are happening to us, even if we don't believe in ghosts. Like it's kind of this. Did that really happen? Is that what I saw? Is that what I heard? Type of things, and it just works very well.
And that is the brilliant of this like genre and trope, is the slow build. Like I love slow burn. I love slow builds, and this is like the king of horror subgenre, where everything starts out fine and something kind of weird happens, but not that big of a deal, and it just keeps building from there until it's just so much pressure. And that's why I love these kind of movies so much.
Yeah, I think that's, you get into the core of why they work, I think, so well, is because they are so small, personal, and ghosts are the thing. When you look at the scheme of horror, you have slashers, and you have monsters, and vampires and werewolves, and the devil, and all these things. But when you get to ghosts, there's like a level of like, we all kind of, whether we're religious or not, can think that something sometimes is happening, and to us, it's like our imagination can fill in the gaps and really run wild. So I think these movies work so well because of that. And I think locking our characters in this place that's supposed to be our safe haven is just, the only thing that works as well as this, I think, is a home invasion film.
Yeah, absolutely. And
which is arguably the same type of trope, really.
Yeah. And I mean, usually those build the same way, like home invasion builds, because it's never like, there's always an extra element, and it usually is like some kind of family fight or couple fight or friend fight where things are already tense, and then that gets added to it. So it's very similar, and like, pacing and vibe and all of that. So haunted family who are home invaded by something.
Yeah,
that's our new title of this podcast.
There's a handful we could talk about that people are like, oh no, but they haven't seen this. There's a lot of these movies.
Oh yeah.
I do want to give. We can quickly touch on these ones. I'm not as into these as some people, but 1408, which was a Stephen King adaptation, it used the hotel room as the haunting, which I think is pretty interesting. It's more of the big budget kind of horror, and some of it works, some of it doesn't work.
I feel like it's like half of a good movie, and it just kind of jumps the rails there and becomes just silly.
It's close to being a good movie.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's maybe more than
again.
half.
I've only seen it once.
I think it's like mostly a good movie, but there's like a couple jump. It's got 80% Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, so we're in the minority.
I guess. 1986's House, which was
that's one I saw. Yeah, that was one of those like VHS copies where I remember the cover of the like that hand ringing the doorbell. And I remember the guy's face, and I remember a few sequences, but I was probably like 10 years old last time I saw that. So.
I was obsessed with this movie, so I remember it quite well. It felt like kind of like a good entry horror movie because there was a kid in it, and there's those two kid monsters. But this movie is quite creepy, but it uses the ghosts are more realized in like zombie monster format. But it does kind of it works it's as much of a ghost story, I think, as the last half of Insidious is. Like when they go to the other astral plane, there is an element of like this other side that we see. Like when he opens the mirror and there's darkness, there's like this weird bat thing flying. It is a little bit more on the like fantasy horror level. I think 14
arguably like is Poltergeist arguably too, like with their little portal and all that stuff. So.
And then I have the movie Sinister.
I think that one's okay. Like, is it? I don't like. I want to say again. I think it kind of has the 1408. I think like there's some perfectly good like tense moments and scares, and I do think it has like the family stuff because isn't he having like family problems because he's neglecting them or something? Like Ethan Hawke. Because he finds those videos.
He's an alcoholic, right? He's a writer who's trying to write his next book. He's had one book, and he writes about real life shit, and then he finds a mysterious 8mm film during his research. And then
in his attic, like he moves in, and it's all like sitting upstairs in a box.
Where murder happened. He doesn't tell his family, and he sits in his locked room drinking his whiskey.
There's just a box sitting up there.
It's not a bad movie. It's okay.
I think. From memory, like again, I think I've only seen this once, maybe twice, but I think it's pretty effective. But then it just kind of like falls apart at the end when they go too big and they start showing too much. And the Mr. Sinister guy, whatever he is, when he starts getting too big, then it just gets a little silly, I think. It's just
Yeah,
gets too monster movie, I guess.
Well, speaking of another monster movie, that would be 2001's 13 Ghosts, which I just watched last night. And I didn't consider to fit this trope. I was just watching it because I was like, I want a shitty horror movie before I go to bed. And it's still a lot of fun. It uses every editing trick from 2001 you could use. I wouldn't say a great
Doesn't
movie.
it have does it have a maze or something, like a glass maze or something at some point?
The whole house
like traps.
The whole house is
like
that.
a trap.
Yeah, it's like see-through floors and stuff.
Yeah, that's another one. I saw it at the theater, and it's like, never returned.
I think I ever will watch this again. Yeah. It looks like uncredited James Gunn did a rewrite on that script. I would say it's not a very good movie, but something that it does involve like a family that acquires a house and moves in, and they're to their strange uncle's house.
That's more like a Winchester House thing, right? Like where he was just crazy and he's trying to trap ghosts in his house.
Yeah, he was trapping ghosts. And then the last one I'm gonna give a nod to is one that I watched a few months back that I thought was very effective and quite scary. It's called Hell House LLC. I know there's a number of other ones in the title. Listen, I didn't watch it myself because I was like, what the fuck is that movie? It's got a silly title. I don't want to watch it. And I think the poster was kind of lame, but it's from 2015. It's from 2015. 90% Rotten Tomatoes. It is very effective found footage scary movie about.
Where can I watch this?
I think it's streaming on Amazon Prime. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I'll check it out.
I can't vouch for the second and third one, but the first one is very good. It follows a documentary group that they're documenting. They're like taking over a haunted house where an unexplained malfunction killed 15 people, including staff, on Halloween night at a home haunt kind of thing. So a crew goes back to the scene to figure out what happens, and I think they're like remaking the haunted house. If I remember, like they're going to reopen it too. Mm-hmm. I liked it. I thought there's like some shit in here that's just very scary. I recommend it. I think if you've never seen it, if you're looking for something truly creepy, this Halloween, this is it. And so the shitty title comes from the haunted house in the movie is called Hell House, which would be a haunted house name.
Yeah.
So once you know that, once you know that, you're like, oh, okay, this makes some more sense.
Looks like it's on Shudder if anyone wants to watch it there. So
I highly recommend it. There's been 3 or 2 others that I can't tell you if they're good or not, but the first one,
it's Hell House 2, the Abaddon Hotel, Hell House 3, Lake of Fire. They're all on Shudder. So go there. I think we did it.
Yeah, we did a good trope. So that's one of my favorite genres. People get trapped in a house and they have to find a way to get out, whether that's through solving a mystery or through just finding a way to get out of the house. Because sometimes the house doesn't want you to leave.
Yeah. And I do think like it's very close. I like that we did this back to back with our like remote location things because it has the same kind of setup. It just develops differently. And I think that's interesting. That's a good like double feature podcast.
Yeah. So yeah.
Good job us.
We didn't mean to do that.
No.
So coming up this month, we're going to continue our tropes with a live show.
Yeah, that's on Monday, 19th.
Yeah. So you're listening to this right now. You're like, oh, shit, they're going to put one out in just a few days. You better believe it. And we'll even do a little bit of research. But what are we going to be talking about? What is the festival we're a part of and what's happening?
Yeah. We're doing the Feminist Fright Fest with their name's always so long, and I don't have notes in front of me. The Emily Taylor Women and Gender Equality Center or something. It's through KU. It's a department on there. So that's why we're going to do a little more research because we're going to be live and it's an academic institution. So we want to like not do this and be like, isn't that no Nicole Kidman? No, we don't want to do that live. So
we will still definitely do that live.
Yeah, you're right. But we're going to try. We have notes and stuff. So we're going to approach it a little more like
we did the Amityville episodes.
Yeah.
Which were the most researched.
Where we actually did our job.
That'll be live on Monday, October 19th at 7:00.
Central, yeah, 7 p.m. Central
via Zoom.
on YouTube. We're streaming on YouTube. You and I will join.
It's free,
Zoom.
right? It's people can attend.
Yeah,
for
it's
free?
totally
Okay.
free. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all our social medias we'll put the YouTube link and all that stuff so you can join and talk to us.
It'll be an hour show, roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a Nightmare Hour.
Yeah, we can actually talk to people about Final Girls, because that trope is mostly associated with slasher films, but maybe I'm going to bring a couple films to the table that aren't slasher films that have Final Girls.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm excited. We're on the same page.
And then we're going to end the month of tropes on the last week of October. With the much teased Creepy Kids. So that's a big genre. That's a lot more than just than what we've done in the last couple episodes. So that one isn't just about, a specific. That one's gonna have a gamut. Like, we're gonna have a lot of things to talk about. I'm excited because Creepy Kids. I think they were popularized in the 2000s, but they have a long history, and I think we're gonna dive. Pretty deep.
Yeah, I don't know why, but that's like, of all these that we've talked about, so many movies popped in my head. I don't know if I've seen more Creepy Kid movies than other movies or what. But
The Haunting of Bly Manor would be a Creepy Kid movie.
Yeah, kind of. If you run out of streaks, but I was thinking like Sweet Sweet Alice or whatever, how many sweets that is, and like, oh God, I can't think of the name right now. The Donald Sutherland, where they're looking for their kid.
Don't Look Now.
Yeah,
There's
so many.
Yeah, every J-horror movie.
Yeah, and like the obvious ones like Children of the Corn and such. We're gonna have that might be our Nightmare Hours, so we'll see what happens.
We'll grow old together. Okay, well, thank you for joining us for our second week of October, and I hope you're having a spooky time watching a lot of movies, and I hope we gave you a couple recommendations here, some things maybe you haven't heard about. As always, please like, share, and let your friends know about this podcast, and you can hit us up at nightmarehourpod@gmail.com. And we will see you live on Monday, October 19th, 7 p.m. Central, as we talk about the Final Girl trope.
Dress accordingly.
Yes.
Your best.
All right.
It's a horror casual.
I love it. I don't know what that means. All right. Well, have a good weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
Wait. I didn't do it. The Nightmare Baby Hour. But, no, the Nightmare Baby over, but the hour keeps sticking. Shit, this was the Nightmare Hour podcast.
Yeah. The Nightmare, maybe an hour. We'll see. Maybe a little over. We'll see. Bye.